All right, hey everybody. So there's something I wanted to talk about, and I believe it pertains to quite a bit in our life. So, for those that don't know, and most people do know, I am a pilot. I have my private pilot's license, and I have been working on my IFR for, at this point in time, way too long. Life just got busy, and it's kind of taken a back seat. But uh, I remembered one of the times I was training with my instructor, and I wanted to talk about that. So, my instructor and I went up on I wouldn't call it a good day, but it was decent enough. And under those conditions, we were flying under visual flight rules. What that is you're able to see outside of the aircraft and fly visually. Well, those conditions quickly deteriorated on our way back to home base. So I ended up having to fly under IFR. That stands for Instrument Flight Rules. So IFR is where you are not able to see outside of the aircraft well, or if at all. So at that point, you're trusting the instruments inside the aircraft. At that point in time, I think I was under doing IFR training for a year, maybe a little over a year. So I did have the experience, but that was my first, or one of the, I think, two times I was under real IFR conditions. So for training with under instrument flight, you would typically wear these things called foggles. They're goggles where they obstruct your view from viewing outside of the windows, but it allows you to focus on the instrument panel inside the aircraft. So that's what I was most familiar with. So entering real conditions, it was different, and I don't want to say panicked, but I definitely got into my own head about it. And for a little bit, I forgot my training. Uh, my instructor did not get involved. And looking back, I'm happy he didn't, because that it really helped reinforce my confidence and the ability to rely on the training I've been given. But as I was saying, I did forget my training for a little bit, and I started listening to the sensations of what felt right flying. So what I thought was straight and level, I was actually 45 degrees banking. I don't remember if it was my altitude was increasing or decreasing, but I was not straight and level. Then uh, I I personally I did start praying, Lord, help me out. I'm freaking out. And maybe a minute or two later or so, I remember it's like, hey, trust the instruments. That's how you've been trained. So there's no need to freak out. So that's what I ended up doing. And I landed the plane safely. I talked about it with my instructor. And I am grateful to have that experience. And I'm also very grateful to return safely. Now, as the story goes, that's about the end of it. But I do think it's important because how often I know for myself, and I'm sure other people are in the same boat, if not similar boat, where they're going through life and they're worried about something, paying a bill, or maybe their job, kids, whatever. It could really honestly be anything. Well, I'm sure that in your life, you could look back and see where the Lord's helped you. I can say that more times than I can think of right now. Or I, I think that came out right. But every time there's a new situation that comes up and I'm thinking, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to land the plane? I'm gotten better, but I still tend to forget quite often that I'm not the person that got myself out of that situation. I was always let out of that situation. And that's what I believe is the Lord trying to teach me. And I'm certain that the Lord is trying to teach everybody else that is to continue to rely on Him. He's put us or allowed us to be in situations that, whether that be situations we put ourselves in or allowed us to get into, He's delivered us from. The story of me flying under instrument flight rules, that's just, for me, one example. I have others, but that's just an example. So I'm here just wanting to share the story to hopefully remind everyone that to, no matter what you're facing, continue to rely on the Lord, trust Him, and when you're presented that situation, don't think, "Oh, how am I going to get out of this? Lord, how are you going to get me out of this one?" Well, the Lord got you out of how many other situations? So it's similar to how we read through the Gospels, how in Mark we read the feeding of the 5,000, and then we read about the feeding of the 4,000. It's like the apostles or the disciples just forgot that, well, Jesus just performed the feeding of the 5,000. Surely the Lord could feed 4,000. Well, they pretty much just repeated themselves at when they said at the feeding of the 5,000. So, like the disciples, today we aren't that much different. So, instead of asking, Lord, how are we going to handle this one? You should be saying, Lord, you've helped me or us out of this similar situation or situations in the past. Please continue to guide and help us today. But that is the end of my story, and uh, I hope I drew a well enough parallel for everybody. But I hope you all have a blessed day. Bye.